Hi guys, welcome back to Passion Talks. Today I'm with Nick Rulle. Nick is a friend of mine. He goes to Cumberland University in Tennessee. He plays soccer. I originally met him when he went to Cleveland State, and he grew up in Denmark. So Nick, glad to have you here.
Thank you for having me, Jake. It's an absolute honor to be here. I'm very happy we could make it work.
Yeah, seriously. So how's everything in Tennessee like? With COVID, what are the restrictions looking like?
So here where I am, there isn't really any restrictions as per se. Just wear your mask every other county, especially in Davidson County where Nashville. I think the rule is that you have to wear it. I haven't been to Nashville in a while though, because at my school we try to kind of isolate ourselves in the bubble.
Yeah.
Which is also the reason why we have been lucky and fortunate enough to train this whole semester where, you see all over the country that schools are shutting down, teams are shutting down. Luckily, we have been fortunate enough to not have too many cases. So for here, it's okay.
Yeah. And because I see like there's a bunch of stuff going on like that we might go back into lockdown mode across the country. And has that had any effect on, you guys maybe having a season next year?
Well, originally, I think that the NAI kind of wanted to see what the NCAA was going to do. And I think it was a couple of weeks after the NCAA kind of, announced that they're going to move the national tournament to the spring. Shortly after that, the NAI did the same. And then it kind of came up to the conferences what they wanted to do, if they wanted to have a fall season or if they wanted to have a spring season. And in our case, they just moved everything to the spring of 2021. We just got the message I think it was last week that we're still going to get that year of eligibility back. We're going to be able to play in the spring and we're going to have a season, but we're going to get the year of eligibility back. So I mean, I know some people would call it a free year, right? But for us, it's not going to be like that.
Yeah, for sure. And so how many years left do you have then, like being able to play?
So with this extra year of eligibility, I have 3 seasons. I originally only had 2 left because I'm a junior, but if I choose to go into a master's program, I could do that as well and play a 5th year.
Yeah, definitely. So how many years were you at Cleveland State? You want to just kind of give the listeners a little bit of a background, like what you did, like growing up in Denmark, and then when you transferred over.
Yeah, so I went to Cleveland State in the fall of 2018, and quite frankly, it didn't go as I wanted to, and I think as my coach wanted to. So I transferred out in the spring of 2019. So I used a year of eligibility there. Transferred to Cumberland University down here in Lebanon, Tennessee, and I've been here ever since. Prior to going to America, I played for a great youth academy back in Denmark. It's called Randers. Played there from the age of 12 through 19. Yeah, 19, I believe it was. And, I just decided to go to America because back in Denmark, it's kind of either school or either soccer. Because school is crammed into 3 years, where instead of in America where you have gen eds and you use the 2 first years to kind of figure out, what do I want to do? You're trying to find your feet in college. In Denmark, it's kind of different because they kind of put you on a path towards what you want to do. So in high school, I studied business, and I knew I was going to go into something with business. So they said, okay, let's cram school into 3 years, and that's what you're going to do then. You're going to work on specifically what you're going to do. And because of that, I just made the decision to go to America because I wasn't really ready to say no to soccer, and I wasn't really ready to say no to school.
Yeah, to just and you weren't ready to just kind of like jump into your professional field right away, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So that is definitely interesting though, because here in the States, it's like a kind of like a long drawn out process of going through your gen eds and then finally you kind of choose your major and then running with that. But whereas in like Denmark, is that maybe some other countries, I'm not too sure about it, but you kind of choose earlier on, like you have to know what you want to do.
I feel like there's a general understanding in especially the EU countries and some other countries like Norway, which isn't part of the EU. I think there is a better understanding of don't put kids through what they're not going to do. It's just a waste of time. What's it called? But, here in America, I think partially it's because of the culture, and partially it's because of social constructions that have been created since the beginning of time.
Yeah.
But partially also because of capitalism, and you just have people that are trying to make money off of you, where, in Denmark, schools are all run by the government. So all schools have to go through the same, where in America, it's different tuition rates, it's different courses, it's different everything, depending on, the schools that you go to. An example would be that when I transferred from Cleveland State, I wouldn't get all my credits with me, simply because you didn't have the course at Cumberland University. So I had to spend extra money on other credit hours, on other courses.
And
where
it's really
in Denmark,
not preparing you for anything,
Yeah, where in Denmark, it's kind of like, if you have microeconomics, it might be called one thing, but everyone knows what you're talking about, and everyone goes through the same. And it's the same in high school. There are certain standards for your first 6 months in high school, where you come straight out of elementary school. You might not quite know what you want because you just exited ninth grade. You just graduated from elementary, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what that would transfer to here as junior high. So you're still trying to find your feet. So the first 6 months, everyone is going to go through the same, regardless of you being in the business school, science school, engineering. Everyone goes through the same, like Danish, English, history, etc., social science. And then if you figure out, you know what, I actually want to change my path, then you're not going to fall behind if you change schools. Whereas in America, 6 months is a semester. And then you might lose an entire semester because you didn't really know what you wanted.
Yeah, and I've had this conversation with plenty of people, like with Zach, our mutual friend, who's actually been on the podcast as well. But yeah, we talked about that and how we feel like the education systems, it's not really set up to help and prepare students, as typically. There are some good schools out there that do a good job of that, but I've gone through the transfer process as well. It's a pain in the butt, and not everything. So many classes that you did and that you work for just don't count for anything, and it's an annoying process for sure. So
very annoying.
I want to talk about a little bit more about Denmark. I know we talked about the differences right there with schooling, but what was like kind of like some of the cultural differences that you noticed when you first came over?
I think a thing like openness and open-mindedness is very apparent in America. America is very diverse, in the sense that no matter what you do, when you do it, and why you do it, there's always a space for you, and there's always somewhere for you to go. Whereas in Denmark, it's such a little country that everyone is basically on the same page with everything, and some certain norms and society standards are already set, and this is what you can and this is what you can't do. Where in America, well, if I don't like it in Ohio and the people that are in Ohio, then let me try to go to Tennessee and see what Southern hospitality is about. I thought going to America was just like, everyone is just the same. You shoot guns and that's it. But then you come here and then you experience that you have millions and millions of people that are just different.
Yeah, the Midwest, the South, the West, it's completely different. It's like a whole different country,
and
the people there.
It's intriguing in that.
Mm-hmm.
It's very intriguing.
No, I was going to say, so like, what have you noticed like between just like the Midwest and the South? Because you're in Tennessee now. I lived in Kentucky for a little bit, so I kind of know what you're talking about with that Southern hospitality. But what's some of the stuff that you've noticed?
It's you have to be extremely polite. And I think down here, there's a reason why we call it the Bible Belt, because it's very, very religious. Mm-hmm. And, stores close at 10. You can't buy alcohol after 10. You can't swear. There's just certain things that are not accepted. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And everything that you do, there's always, a mentioning of God. That's something that I noticed. That's not something that we really talk about where I come from, where, religion isn't as big of a deal, where here it kind of dictates what you do and when and why you do it.
Yeah.
Another thing that I really noticed is that Southern hospitality is actually a thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually a thing.
Definitely.
People down here are very, very helpful. They're very polite. And if you ever need anything, and that's something that I really had to get used to going from Denmark to America, is that if you need anything, if you're in any sort of trouble, there's always someone to help you. It makes it easier for me that I'm at a smaller school. I think we have 2,500 students, and the longest walk you ever have to walk is 5 minutes. So everyone, and you know what everything is. But it's also part of society down here that if you can help, you help, and if you can't, then you find someone who can.
Yeah, and that's an awesome kind of thing to be said about you. It's I think that's why a lot of people are kind of moving, maybe not so much as the Bible Belt, but like to Texas and to kind of more, I don't want to say kind of conservative states, but it is, one, the tax breaks is, much better, but it's also like the culture that you have there. It's a lot more hospitable, and, I definitely can see what you're saying with that. But I also feel like Ohio has a little bit of that compared to at least California, where I'm currently living.
Yeah.
And it's like, California, it's very, I don't know, it's like, when you get to know people and, then it's great and you're really friendly, but it's not that surface level friendly that you find in the Midwest that you would find in the South. And that's what's kind of neat about the country though,
I will say this though, especially up north. I've had the experience in Ohio. I've also had the experience in Michigan a couple of times. It's much more high paced up there. Nothing against the South, don't get me wrong, but Ohio and Michigan and those northern states, it's just go, 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 go. I don't have time to waste my time and all this sort of stuff. Like, you drive faster on the freeway. Where down here you kind of take your time. It's okay to take your time. We're in no rush. It's gonna be okay. Where up in Ohio, it's like I don't have time for it. It has to be high paced. If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it definitely does make sense.
And it's fun. It's fun to see because like it's only like a 2-hour flight or an 8-hour drive.
Yeah, from Ohio.
How things can be so radically different in the same country. It's kind of intriguing to me, and it's kind of interesting.
So how's that different from Denmark though? What's Denmark's kind of culture like?
In terms of what?
It's like, are they a little more laid back? Are they more upbeat?
I think there is a sense of, working hard and, doing your job. Something that I noticed over here, nothing against it, and it's probably a generalization of America as a whole, which is, it's not based on facts. It's just based on an opinion and, and an experience that I have had personally. I think there are more women that are working in Denmark, which means that, the families, both parents are working. So you constantly out, 9 to 5, then you come home and then you still have your homely duties, where over here especially down here in the South, you have stay-at-home moms, and then the man has his, 9 to 5 job. Where back home, it's kind of like, we have to make it work, and we constantly have to have a plan, and we constantly have to think ahead because both parents are working. My kids are in daycare. Who's going to pick them up? So you constantly have to have that high-paced mindset of when to do it, why to do it, and how to do it.
Yeah, I think that's definitely something that's changing though in the States, where it's for sure becoming a 2-income household almost everywhere, because the prices are rising, everything's going up. And income is not necessarily, income and salaries isn't necessarily following that same trajectory. But
as I said, it's just an experience, and it's not really based on facts.
Yeah. What's
and it's great. It's great that it does that though, because it it's important.
Oh, for sure.
It's important that we create equality, and that everyone is part of society, and no one feels like they're left out. Everything that's going on at the moment, I think it's especially important that we touch on that, and we make sure that regardless of who you are, where you're from, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, that everyone has a place, and a place that they feel like they belong.
Yeah. But at the same time, you kind of got to be, I don't want to say be careful with it, but like the way you raise your kids is so important. It's like, because I think we're kind of seeing it now. It's like where there's a big divide in just overall kind of morals. Like I feel like 30 years ago, there was a set of morals that we all kind of had that we at least could measure ourselves against. And right now, I think as a whole, we're losing, like as a whole, as the United States, we're kind of losing that measuring stick, so we don't really know what we're saying everything's good. And so if everything's good, then you have nothing to really actually measure bad against, if you know what I mean. And I think that's where good parenting really comes into play. And it's something that we have to have for sure. But there's a balance, it can't be like, 1950s where it's like, no, the woman stays home and she watches the kids, she makes the meals, and because you need the two incomes, but you also need that, that home life for your kids. And it's definitely a big balance. I mean, a balance that needs to be had.
We've also gotten smarter though. Like we've gotten to a point where, I don't want to say we're fully there, because, all statistics tell us that we're not fully there. But I just think it's important that we give people the resources to actually get where they want to be. Like it shouldn't be to the point where a woman has to work 10 times harder than a man just to get the same kind of job for less pay. If that makes sense.
Are you talking about the wage gap?
I'm talking about the wage gap, yeah.
Yeah, that one's kind of
it's closing up, don't get me wrong.
That one's kind of interesting though, because I don't know, have you ever listened to Jordan Peterson? You ever heard of him?
Yeah, I listen to a lot of his stuff.
Yeah, I really like him because he breaks that down really, really well. And I don't really even want to try to begin and get into what he talks about.
No, not at all. Not at all.
But he breaks that down really, really well, to where he kind of says it's like there is a pay gap, but it's for reasons other than like what our society is. It's not like we're just paying men more because they're men. Like the reasons behind it, he breaks it down really neat, and I'd recommend anybody to at least just do a quick YouTube search. Jordan Peterson, he's awesome. So so your major's marketing. I kind of want to get into a little bit of the school aspect right now, academics. What made you choose marketing, and what's kind of your 5-year plan once you graduate school?
So originally I went into accounting and business administration, and kind of, battled in between those, what I wanted to do. And I just quickly figured out that sitting in front of a computer, typing in numbers, auditing, it just wasn't for me. I think the reason why I went into marketing was because I'm very intrigued of building a brand and figuring out, how do I solve the customer's internal, external issues? How can I make a difference for them right here, right now, and in the future? And I just figured that the best way I could do that was to go into sales and marketing. To answer your question about where I see myself in 5 years, I actually don't really know, because I'm in a different situation than most Americans are. And, I want to try to stay in America, don't get me wrong, but I'm also a foreigner. And everything that's going on right now with the coronavirus, with, changing politics, we don't even know who's going to be the next president, because there's a lot of stuff going on with that I don't even want to get into, because I'm not educated enough about it. But I don't even know where I am in 6 months.
Yeah, well,
I don't even know where I am in a year.
That comment right there shows how educated you are compared to most people. Where you said admitting that you're not educated enough.
I think ultimately, I wanna go into real estate. And that's tied to my personal background. I'm a child of divorced parents, and had to move around a lot when I was a kid, and my dad lived 2 hours away from my mom, and I constantly had to feel like when I was a kid that I had to live in a travel bag.
Yeah.
And I think, not to get too emotional or serious about it, I kind of want to try to see if I can make it different for other kids, and maybe try to, instead of having to move around a lot because you don't really feel fit in the city that you live in or the society that you're in, try to help families find the right fit for them so they don't split up.
Yeah.
I know that, that's in a perfect world and it's not going to happen fully, but I think I want to call it a disgrace that 50% of newly married couples, and it's somewhat around 50%, they all get divorced.
Yeah.
And it's not just
it's
in
roughly
America,
50%.
it's especially in Western societies.
It's a scary
And
thought too.
and
Getting married and going through that divorce process. Super
pardon?
scary.
Yeah, I know. So I think that's the path that I want to go. And then I have a passion for coaching. And I kind of want to see if I can make coaching either a part-time or full-time thing. So
Yeah.
as we're speaking, I'm actually trying to start up a company in Denmark, with a very good friend of mine, and we're very excited about it. Where the whole idea is to, bring that elite pro mindset into an academy that doesn't compete, as per se. So it's not a club.
Yeah.
It's an academy where
it's like a training center, right?
It's like a training center where every kid, regardless of your level, regardless of your age, is able to come in, get quality training, but then also get the benefits of being at a pro academy. Like, take Manchester United, Liverpool, Man City. The kids that are there, they're having pro coaches, they're having strength and conditioning coaches, they're having nutritionists to maximize their output. They're having mental coaches in, how do I learn how to be a high performer?
Yeah.
How do I learn how to do every little thing that I do as close to perfect as possible? Perfection is not attainable. Like, none of us are getting to perfection. And it's a cliche when people are saying, oh, I need 120% from you, because it's not attainable. None of us are ever going to get there.
For it.
You strive for it. And that's the key thing. So what my friend and I, what we wanted to do is give kids that elite experience of being in an academy and having the benefits of being in an academy, regardless of if you're already in an academy or if you're just at a grassroots club.
Yeah. Aren't you already kind of like also training kids here in the States as well? I mean, I know it's not the whole academy thing, but you are doing some personal training, right?
I am. And I work for a guy, his name is Caleb. He plays for Nashville Soccer Club, and he's on a contract with the MLS, with the Major League Soccer.
Nice.
And then he has his own academy, where I kind of get the pleasure to be under his wings. He's a very smart guy, and he's a very educated guy, and he really knows what he's talking about. And that certainly, helped me to become a better coach, but it also helped me a little bit to see, okay, what is it actually like to run an academy?
Yeah, because you can take what he does well and then add it to some of your ideas, and then just
but what we also have to understand is that if you keep taking things from everyone and you just apply it, then I just believe you're going to be mediocre. If you take things that someone else is doing and you implement it in your own without knowing why you're doing it, then it's never going to succeed. So it's fine to take a little from other people, but you have to make it your own. And that's what I want to do. So, like, what I'm going to do in Denmark is not going to be nearly as close to being the same as CPS Soccer Academy. Because that's not my passion. That's not my idea.
No,
you know what I mean?
I'm following you. But that's definitely something that is a need in the United States. So as far as like in the soccer realm, probably Denmark as well. I'm just not familiar with it, because we have all the talent in the world, in the United States, but why aren't we competing on the national, on the international level, like, some other countries? And I think it comes down to, like, for us, for other countries, they take somebody with talent and they throw them into one of those academies, at such a young age. Versus, in the United States, you go through, maybe some club, then you go to college where you're also doing academics. So it's not like that 24/7 thing. And I think if we ever really want to get competing international level with soccer, we gotta start doing that.
I think that ultimately comes down to the way that everything is set up here.
Mm-hmm.
Like it works for football, it works for basketball, baseball, all the American sports that you go through college, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But for soccer, it's a European sport. And when you start taking the principles of treating it like an American sport, then it just becomes a problem. And I think ultimately coaches are not educated enough. I don't want to speak too badly about American coaches, because you do find great American coaches that really know what they're talking about, who put their minds towards let me know and learn about the game.
Yeah.
I just feel like when I go coach for CPS and I look over on the other field where there is a grassroots club training and they just put up 4 cones and they play 5-a-side or 7-a-side for 2 hours, they're not going to learn anything. And I think certainly that's something that has to change, and it is changing. Because the Major League Soccer, which is a privately owned soccer league like the NFL, the NHL, and NBA, they're all privately owned. However, the clubs are starting to catch on to what the European clubs are doing, which is having their own academies and bringing kids through sort of the same thing that I want to do with my soccer academy. It has to be an education. It can't just be, you just show up to training and that's it. What have you actually learned? So that I think that's something that's really going to benefit American soccer down the line, that clubs are trying to make it their own. And they're trying to educate kids.
And that's a problem. Sorry, go ahead. I was saying that's a problem for wrestling too. Like, I have a little bit more knowledge on wrestling, but we have so much talent. But the problem is we wrestle. There's like international wrestling, which is like freestyle and Greco, if you're not familiar. But then we have our American style of wrestling, which is, collegiate or folk style, where you grow up in like, it's different rules. Like in folk style, you're trying to get out from bottom, and freestyle and Greco, you stay on the bottom and then they'll reset you to the feet. And because of this, we have crazy good athletes. They go through this folk style, all the way up through college. And then when they want to enter the international level, they got to switch over to freestyle and Greco, so we're already, behind the Russians, are like 7, 8, 9 years, of like training year round with this stuff. And we still compete well, but I would only imagine, what it would be like if we were all just on the same level, using the same exact rules, same everything.
No, you're totally right, and it's the same for soccer in reality.
Yeah. So what's the difference? I mean, I know we talked about like kind of cultural difference between Ohio and Cleveland State. I mean, and Ohio and Tennessee. But what's like how for soccer, like the differences between going to Cleveland State, which is Division I, then the University of Cumberland, which is NAIA, and kind of walk me through that process.
Well, I think for an international student, it's kind of different because, you have your visa, you have your I-20. There are just certain requirements that make it so much more difficult for an international student to come to America and play on a collegiate level versus an American that is already here.
Yeah.
But I think the process went as smooth as it could. I originally, when I played at Cleveland State, wasn't really aware of the fact that I was going to transfer until 2 weeks prior to me going home over Christmas.
Yeah.
What's it called? So I had to find something very quick, and my I don't want to call him my agent because he's not an agent. My advisor, who I worked with prior to going to America,
NCAA. I said that would get you in some trouble with the NCAA.
No, but in reality, he's not an agent.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't really take payment, and he doesn't take a percentage of your weekly or your monthly salary. Like professional agents over in Europe or here in America, they always take 10% because, you know how it is.
Because they can.
Yeah, because they can. It's lovely, isn't it? No, Babajita, my advisor, he really helped me in that regard, and we found Cumberland University relatively quickly, which I'm very, very grateful for. I had a friend who from Denmark, who I played against a couple of times, who actually was gonna go to Cumberland, and he heard about my situation, and he was like, "Hey, we're in need of a goalkeeper because our goalkeeper graduated," and I think because of that, it made it much more smooth for me because they were already looking for someone, and it wasn't.
Yeah, and you just came in and filled that role.
I just came in and filled that role exactly. I think, speaking of the two schools in particular, I think something that has benefited me a lot here at Cumberland is that it's a European coach, and he, not to talk bad about American coaches, but it's just a different culture.
Yeah.
It's very like in America, you have kids that are depending on the scholarship that they have, and they're going to fight for that every single day. Where me as a foreigner, me especially coming from Denmark, where everything is practically free and paid by taxes, if something was to happen, if I break my foot tomorrow, I'm going to be okay because I can go home, I can get my foot taken care of for free, and I can go get a great education without having to think about having student loans. Where an American, if you lose your scholarship, you're done. Unless your family is well off, you're done. So I think the culture is very much like bite or get bitten. Where I come from a very, I don't want to call it a lousy type of culture, but it's very much like pat you on the back, it's gonna be okay. And there's not much yelling, and it's very much. They call it a positive sandwich. Like if you're gonna give someone critique, you're always gonna have something good in there. Where in America, it's very much like that's bad, get on with it. You know what I mean? And I just didn't adapt to that in Cleveland. That was very hard for me to accept in Cleveland. Then I come to Cleveland State, to Cumberland. Apologies. I come to Cumberland, and my coach kind of knows that. So my coach adapted to me, where in Cleveland State, I had to adapt to my coach, if that makes sense. Yeah. And that was a very, very tough thing for me to do. And I think ultimately that's what made me, not do as good as I wanted to in Cleveland, simply because, I couldn't adapt.
Yeah. And I don't want to switch subjects, but you kind of said something interesting. And I didn't really want to run past it or interrupt your thought. But you said you kind of talked about the differences in healthcare and how Denmark's kind of like a democratic socialist country, and how obviously the countries are vastly different. United States has much bigger population, and but I was wanted to kind of ask you, what do you think are the big differences in kind of like the socialist Denmark versus capitalist America, aside from obviously the healthcare and stuff. Have you noticed it kind of take an impact as far as businesses go?
It's like in America, there's this perception that if you don't have a college degree, you're dumb, and which I simply don't believe, because Mark Zuckerberg, founder of Facebook, dropped out of Harvard, even though allegedly he stole the idea from his roommate. But let that be it. What's it called? No, I think I think Zach said it on a previous podcast. You can't just pay bottom feeders $20 an hour because you have them move a couple of boxes for you. And that's to a certain degree that's true. Where I think in Denmark, the minimum wage is much, much higher. I think Denmark is one of the countries that are having the highest income before tax in the world, right after Norway. And I think there is this perception, in especially America, that if you're a socialist country, you're never going to make money, and it's simply just a lie.
What's the tax like? You might not know completely, but how much are you guys being taxed out there?
So of your base salary, let's say you make $100,000 a year,
Mm-hmm.
the first before any taxes are taken out, they take 8% for, you know, the I don't know the translation, but it's something with the workforce. They just take 8%. So they take 8,000 of
$100,000.
Yeah, around that. 8,000. Then they take 38 of what you have left.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you make over a certain amount, I think it's, if I convert, I think it's $77,000. Then they take 51 on top of what you make.
Geez, so no
So
matter
in
what, though, you're
reality,
walking
if
out
you
with
make more than
46%. So no matter what, it's a 46%.
somewhat like that.
Roughly. And then if you make more, then they'll throw it on. So there's a good chance you're throwing away at least half your money just in taxes, right?
Yeah, well, it depends on how much you make, because like it's only whatever you make after the 77,000. So it's not like just because you make 100,000, they're going to take 51% of everything. It's a progressive tax like you have here in America.
I gotcha. So that's what I think one of the biggest things when you hear the kind of like the argument for like democratic socialism, and you hear like Bernie Sanders, and I think the problem is we just have too many people, and you know, we have too many people that are willing to kind of like live off the whole eat the rich mindset. You know what I mean? I think that's a real bad mindset to have. You know, it might work. I mean, I don't think Denmark has that mindset completely, because you guys kind of used to it. But the mindset we have with socialism now is that if you're rich, you did it because you stepped on other people's heads, and it's not because of hard work. Well, I think that's a real, you know, poor mindset to have, because you're kind of like teaching people that, you know, you can't be successful without, you know, stepping on other people's heads. And, you know, and I just don't think that's right, because you have these guys who, you know, running a company is not easy, you know, and creating a brand is not easy, and doing these things it's not easy to do. And to villainize that, I think it's a pretty dangerous game to play, you know?
No, for sure. And you also have to think about it this way. And this is a thing in Denmark, and I don't want to say it's too much in America, because I don't think it is actually, but there's this thought in Denmark that if you have money, you can't show it. Like it's not okay for you to be better than the middle class person. So like, let's say I made $5 million a year, and I wanted to get a nice car. I wanted to get a huge mansion. Then everyone is going to look down on you because this guy has money, huh? He thinks he's a big shot. I don't think there's that same thing in America.
No, not at all.
But like just to come a little bit back to what you said, you also have to think about, like, let's take Jeff Bezos, who owns Amazon. If everything goes in the gutter, who's going to have that responsibility? Jeff Bezos is. Yeah. It's not the guy that's being paid X amount of dollars to, you know, move boxes for him. It's Jeff Bezos. I'm sorry. Did I fall out there? I'm sorry.
Yeah, there's something weird. I think we're good now.
Yeah, I had someone to call me.
Yeah, we're still recording. We're good.
Cool. No, so just coming back to my point. If everything goes in the gutter, it's Jeff Bezos that's ultimately, you know, gonna be the one that's gonna, you know, be prosecuted and,
sure.
You know, having to pay a lot of money out to investors and all this sort of stuff.
Where how much pressure
I don't think people think about that. I think people just think, oh, he's a rich guy, he's well off, he should do X, Y, and Z, and I simply don't agree with it.
Yeah, no, definitely. And also, it's like when you see these Instagram posts like, oh, you know, Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk's net worth raised 20 billion today. That's just off the stock price. You know, it's not like he's seeing that, you know, then they're like, oh, he's not paying taxes on it. Well, yeah, because he didn't liquidate it. You know, it's all on the stock price. It's not like he sold his assets. And I think that's the problem. It's like, and then you hear these, like, you know, the possible tax plans with Joe Biden and Bernie. Like, the rich won't pay taxes because it's not like they're paying themselves $1 million salary. You know, it's all in assets, to where it's like it just gets reinvested and their money makes the money. So it's like, I think if we had most people had a general understanding of how taxes work and how rich people actually get rich and make their money, I think there would be a lot more people like, oh, so Really, when you have this high tax plan, it really doesn't affect the top 1% wealth, because they're not going to pay it anyway.
Yeah.
And plus, if I'm Jeff Bezos and they're trying to hit me with all these, like, why would I'll just take my company elsewhere.
Yeah.
I'm not going to build that plant in New York. I mean, he did it, but which is what I'm talking about in New York, where he threatened that he wasn't gonna build his plant there. He eventually did it though.
Yeah.
So.
And don't get me wrong, just because I'm from Denmark doesn't mean that I'm totally for everything that's going on there. I spoke to someone the other day, and she asked me, so what do you really like about America? And I said that the fact that you can make a living out of your dream without having to completely worry about the government coming and taking it away from you.
Yeah.
I'm really intrigued about that. Where in Denmark, it's very much like, well, if you're well off, you have to protect everyone. And then you have these, people in Social Security that are getting $3,000 a month after tax, just sitting there doing nothing because of, they can do it.
Yeah, that's my biggest problem with it. It's like, I hate the idea of rewarding people who don't want to work and don't want, like, if you don't have like the drive and like the ambition to go do something yourself, like why should we pay for you to have the newest iPhone? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, listen, I'm all for good social programs that get people on their feet and find them jobs so that they can, I'm all for that. But I'm not for just handing people checks and letting them sit down. You know what I mean? Sit on the butts and do whatever they want.
And you have to think about line. And you have to think about this too. Like, so in Denmark, we already talked a little bit about it. Like, health insurance is taken care of, and your school is taken care of,
which is great. That's awesome.
Which is great, but you also have to look at it this way. I keep paying towards that until I die.
Yeah.
So like in
you
America,
pay for your education 10 times over.
If your tuition is over 4 years, 100,000, let's just say 100,000, that's it. Then you pay that money back, and then you're done. Yeah. Where in Denmark, it's like, well, I'm done with my education, but I still pay the same amount of taxes, and everyone is still going to benefit from it. I don't know if I like that, to be honest.
And plus, it's like in Denmark, what if you choose not to go to college? It's like, well, I'm not going to college. Why do I have to pay for it? That's another thing I don't like. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm completely against like the United States college system. I don't understand why the prices keep rising up. I think we add on all these costs that we could cut so many costs down, and so that's a problem in and of itself. But I'm not against the college, paying for your own college. I don't think the government should really get involved with that. I just think that we should bring in.
Jacob, supply and demand. It's a real thing. Like if there's this perception, we already talked about it. If there's this perception that if you don't have a college degree, you're dumb and the only thing you can do is work in Walmart, everyone is going to want a college degree and everyone is going to need a college degree.
That's true. But the demand is like, it's the thing is like a college degree is not enough anymore. So now it's like, get your degree, but now we need experience. We need, it's like, it all comes down to experience. And like, so I just got a job at this accounting firm down here, and I'm an accounting, major. And it's like, I've learned so much more in the 4 weeks that I've worked at this accounting firm than I have throughout my 2.5 years just in accounting classes.
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm not saying that I think college is good because I think you grow socially from it. It's good when people get away from home, figure out what they believe and why they believe it. But academically, it's like, for some majors, maybe like medical majors and stuff like that. But at least for now, like currently, I have not really been, I haven't found those accounting classes to be as helpful as, they could have been for the last 2.5 years. Had I just been working at, an accounting firm, I would have known so much more by now.
To be fair, you do get more educated, and I think speaking of him again, Jordan Peterson, he had a lecture at some point where he says the reason why you write English paper is to get smarter and get better educated.
Yeah.
But coming back to your point and then building on it, how is college going to prepare you for one job?
Yeah.
How's college ever going to prepare you for this particular firm? You're going to learn it within the first year anyways.
Yeah.
Or even in your internship. And then you go out of college and then you know exactly what you're going to do.
Yeah. And I heard somebody say, and I don't know who exactly it was, but it might have been Jordan Peterson, honestly, but it's like college is good because it teaches you how to learn. So like you're always in like a state of like, oh, I gotta read this book, I gotta take this test, I gotta study for this. So it's like you're always kind of forcing yourself to do things that you wouldn't normally do. Like, I wouldn't normally just sit down and read an accounting book for fun. So I guess it's good in that regard, that you have to force yourself to learn new things. But as far as the practicality of it, I think it leaves a good bit to be desired for sure.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. We're totally on the same page.
Yeah.
I just, in my situation where I want to stay in America, and if I have just slightest hopes of getting a work visa, I need a college degree, because who's going to hire a foreigner who doesn't even have an American high school degree?
For sure.
I have a Danish high school degree. Like I need it. As much as I say that, as much as I don't believe that I need it, I do.
Yeah.
Simple facts. And I think more people find themselves in that situation, not just because they're foreign, but simply just because of the social constructions that have been created over the last 100 years.
Yeah, well, it's almost expected of you to go to college. It's like, oh, what school are you going to? And where I'm not exactly all in favor of that. I think it's just as important to learn trades. Learn how to weld, learn practical things like that. Like those are very employable skills. So I'm not saying like if you don't go to college, you're not going to be successful, but you're right. It is definitely kind of expected of you out of high school to just go, and for most people take out a ton of student loans. And I'm completely for college as long as you come out with a degree that you can get a job with. If you go in there with for your little art major, I don't know, man. I don't know how you justify that.
But the funny thing is, Jacob, that I know people that get a degree in physical science and they go into sales.
Yeah, that's true.
Just because they have a degree. Like I think
they just wanted their bachelor's.
And I spoke to an employer the other day, and he said that, to me it doesn't really matter what kind of degree it is. To me it matters that, well, you went through 4 years of struggle and you have shown that you can manage your time good enough to get yourself a college degree. Because as much as we sit here and talk about that it's not necessary and all this sort of stuff, it's still a struggle.
It is, yeah, for sure.
And being able to show your employer that, hey, I can go 4 years, be self-disciplined enough to turn in my papers and still do well. I can do that for your company too. I think that's a major, major asset that you can't take away from college.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you. And what about like how's Cumberland compared to going from a bigger school, commuter school like Cleveland State, where you have bigger classroom sizes up to 100 people, and now you're going to Cumberland where it's like 20 people. Do you like it better?
Oh, I totally prefer the way that I think it's something that Cumberland University is doing extremely well. Also during COVID, I feel like I need to give them some applause for handling the way that they do. I think the whole ability to go to your professor and talk to your professor and actually get to know your professor, it helps tremendously, because you might be a great student. You see this on the SAT and the TOEFL that the non-English speakers have to take before they go to America. You see that on there, that you might be a great student, but then it comes down to one test and you're just failing miserably. If you can go to your professor and talk about it and figure out, hey, how do I have to do this differently? Or if it's a paper, how can I write this paper differently so that I hit the major points? I generally believe that you get smarter. I don't believe that you get smarter from having 5 classes a year where 4 of them are in a big lecture hall with 200 and something people, and it's just the professor talking. Because you're just getting his main idea, and you're not developing your own. Where I think at Cumberland University, there's room to develop your own ideas, which I think ultimately college should be about.
For sure, that's
college shouldn't be about listening to one guy that's been saying the same things for 30 some years. no one's going to get smarter, and society is never going to move forward.
I agree. I
Simple
had
as
the
that.
same experience at Walsh, my previous school. It's like I didn't, had great relationships with like 3, 4 professors where it's more than just your class. Like I went to them like to talk to maybe about my resume, and they would like literally sit down with me like, oh, let's go over your resume. Let's see what, employers are looking for, A, B, C, D, all that. And it was just a great relationship where you could just go and talk to them as almost as like, as peers rather than, professor. And it's definitely, I think, makes for a better learning environment.
Yeah, because you just, generally speaking, get smarter because you get different perspectives. If you constantly have your own perspective on things, what are you going to learn then?
Yeah,
Then you're going to
I
get
agree.
out in the work. Then you're going to get out in the workforce, and not having the ability to adapt to other people.
Yeah, definitely. Well, Nick, I'm glad to have you on here for the podcast. I'm really happy that you came on. We should do it again sometime. That was fun.
For sure. Thank you for
So
having me.
yeah, is there something, a place that people could reach out to you if they want to follow you on Instagram or something? Do you have an Instagram that you're willing to share?
Yeah, well, I if anything wants to just speak more about it, give my opinion on what it's like being an American. If anyone ever needs a different perspective on that, they're more than welcome to reach out to me on Instagram, which is Nick_Rulle. I'm sure you can add that somewhere.
Yeah, I'll tag it somewhere. But yeah,
What's
Nick,
it
it's a
called?
pleasure having you on here, man. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jacob.